I was 13 the first time my stepfather said it out loud. "You're not my blood. Don't forget that." We were standing in the kitchen. My mother had stepped outside to take a call, and the house suddenly felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice was calm, precise, like he was stating a simple fact the way someone says the sky is blue. I remember gripping the edge of the counter so hard my fingers went numb. I had always known he was my stepfather. My real father died when I was 3. At least that's what my mother told me. When she married him, everyone said I was lucky to have a man willing to raise another man's child. Lucky. That word followed me everywhere. But in that moment, I realized luck had nothing to do with it. From that day on, he made sure I never forgot where I stood. Family dinners were divided without words. His biological son got second helpings. I got reminders. If I asked for money for school supplies, he'd sigh loudly and say, "I already do more than I should for a kid who isn't mine." When relatives visited, I was introduced differently. "This is my wife's child," he'd say. Never my stepson, never family. My mother noticed, but only enough to stay silent. Silence was her survival tool. Whenever I tried to talk to her, she'd say, "Please don't make things worse. He puts food on the table." So I learned to swallow everything. By 16, I was working after school, not because we needed the money, but because he believed I should earn my place. He tracked every dollar I spent, every minute I came home late. He didn't hit me. That would have been easier to explain. Instead, he erased me slowly, day by day. The night everything cracked open came after an argument about college. I had been accepted into a local university with partial scholarship. I was proud, terrified but proud. I handed him the letter, hoping— I don't know what I was hoping for. He laughed. "College?" he said. "For you?" Then he leaned closer, eyes sharp. "You didn't invest in you so you could waste it." That word, invest, made my stomach twist. "I'm not your investment," I said, quietly. His face changed. Not angry, amused. "You really don't know, do you?" Before I could ask what he meant, my mother walked in. He smiled instantly, folded the letter, and placed it back on the table like nothing had happened. But that night, I couldn't sleep, because something about the way he said invest felt wrong, too deliberate, too rehearsed, like he was slipping and almost revealed something he hadn't meant to. I started paying attention after that. Old documents he locked away, phone calls he took outside, the way he flinched whenever money transfers came up in conversation, and most of all, the way he watched me, not like a parent watches a child, but like someone protecting a secret. A terrible thought began forming in my mind. What if I wasn't just unwanted? What if I had been worth something to him in a way that had nothing to do with love? I didn't know it yet, but the truth was already waiting for me. And when I finally followed the trail of dollars, it wouldn't just destroy him, it would shatter everything I thought I knew about my own life. In part 2, I uncover the first document that proves my stepfather didn't just resent me, he profited from me, and my mother may have known. The document wasn't hidden well.
That's what haunted me later. The fact that it was tucked into a folder marked House Utilities, sitting in the bottom drawer of his study like it belonged there, like it was ordinary, like it wasn't the first crack in the foundation of my life. I found it on a Tuesday afternoon. School ended early, and for once, the house was empty. I hadn't gone looking for secrets. I was searching for a spare charger. That's the lie I told myself at first. But the truth is, curiosity had been eating at me since the night he said invest. I opened the drawer, receipts, bills, bank statements, then a thick envelope, yellowed at the edges, heavier than it should have been. My name was typed on the front, my full legal name. My hands started shaking. Inside were photocopies of documents I didn't recognize at first, a transfer receipt, an agreement with names blacked out, and then a number circled in red ink, $48,000. I sat down hard in his chair. The document was dated from years ago, right around the time my mother married him. My name appeared again next to words that made my stomach twist: custodial responsibility, financial consideration, private settlement. It didn't say sale. It didn't have to. I read it 3 times, hoping my brain was misfiring, hoping there was some other explanation, some legal thing I didn't understand. But one line stood out like it was screaming at me. Funds transferred upon assumption of full guardianship. Guardianship. I ran to my room and locked the door. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. I pulled out my laptop and searched the terms, hands slick with sweat. There it was, in plain language. Money exchanged, responsibility assumed, legal custody secured. I wasn't adopted out of love. I had been bought. The room felt smaller, the walls too close. Every memory started replaying differently. His control, his obsession with money, his constant reminders that I owed him something, the way he tracked my expenses like I was a bad investment, the way he never let me forget my cost. I thought about my mother then, and that hurt worse. That evening, I watched her carefully, the way she avoided my eyes, the way her shoulders stiffened whenever my stepfather spoke, the way she flinched when money came up at dinner. After he left the table, I asked her quietly, "Did you know?" She froze. Not confusion, not surprise, fear. "What?" she whispered, though her voice already sounded guilty. I didn't show her the document. I didn't need to. "The money," I said. "Did he give me money for me?" Her face drained of color. She sat down slowly, like her legs had given up. "It was complicated. We needed help. He said he'd take responsibility. He said it was for your future." "For my future?" my voice cracked. "Or for his control?" Tears rolled down her face, but I felt nothing. No comfort, no relief, just a hollow space opening in my chest where trust used to live. That night, I realized something else. The document wasn't the whole truth. It mentioned subsequent transfers, plural. Whatever he paid wasn't a one-time thing, and if there were more payments, then I wasn't just a child he bought. I was a long-term investment. I secretly follow the money trail and discover my stepfather was receiving payments connected to me even years later from someone I never knew existed.
Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Every smile my stepfather gave me after that felt rehearsed. Every criticism felt calculated. I stopped hearing his words as discipline and started hearing them as accounting, like he was constantly measuring whether I was worth what he'd paid.
I needed proof, not just for myself, but because part of me still hoped I was wrong. So I did something I'd never done before. I watched him. I memorized his routines, the nights he stayed up late in his study, the days he went out on errands but came back tense, and most importantly, the bank notifications that popped on his phone when he thought no one was looking. One evening, he left his laptop open. Just a few minutes, that's all it took. I sat in his chair again, heart racing, and opened his email. I didn't search by my name. I searched by $signs. That's when I found them. Regular transfers, every 3 months, always the same amount, always from an account with a coded name. No personal details, no company logo, just numbers and a single letter. Attached to one email was a short message. Subjects, progress, satisfactory, continue as agreed. Subject. I felt sick. I scrolled further and found an old thread, years old. The first message dated just weeks after my mother married him. Guardianship confirmed. Funds released. I leaned back, breathing hard. This wasn't about adoption. This wasn't about helping a struggling mother. This was a deal. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the tone. Cold, professional, like they were discussing property, like I was an asset being managed. I copied everything. Emails, dates, transfer confirmations. I sent them to myself, then deleted the sent history. My hands were steady now, too steady. Something in me had gone numb. That night, I confronted him. Not with anger, not yet. I asked casually, "Why do you get money every few months?" He didn't even blink. "It's none of your business." "But it has my name on it," I said. That's when his mask slipped. His jaw tightened, his eyes went dark. "You've always been curious," he said slowly. "That's your problem. My problem is not knowing who I belong to." He stood up, towering over me. "You belong here, because I paid for that right." There it was. No denial, no excuse. You weren't family, you were responsibility, and responsibility costs money. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out broken and sharp. "Then you should have read the fine print," I said, "because responsibilities grow up." That was the first time I saw fear in his eyes. But I still didn't know who was paying him, or why. The answer came from somewhere I never expected. A letter arrived a week later, addressed to me, not him. No return address, just my name, spelled perfectly. Inside was a single page. "If you're reading this, then you're old enough to know the truth. I'm sorry it took so long." At the bottom was a name I didn't recognize, but something about it made my chest ache, like a memory trying to surface. And then one final line. "I've been paying to keep you safe." My hands trembled. Safe from what? Or from who? I meet the person behind the payments and discover my stepfather wasn't protecting me at all. He was hiding me. I read the letter so many times, the paper softened at the folds. "I've been paying to keep you safe." Safe from what? From my stepfather? From the world? Or from a past I didn't remember? I waited 3 days before acting, not because I wasn't curious, but because I was terrified of what I might lose if the truth was worse than the lies I already knew. The letter included a phone number. On the 4th night, when the house was asleep and the walls felt thin with secrets, I stepped outside and dialed. He answered on the 2nd ring. "He was wondering when you'd call," he said. His voice was older, calm, careful, not at all like my stepfather's. He asked if I was safe where I was, not obedient, not grateful, safe.
We met 2 days later at a small cafe on the edge of town. He arrived early, sitting in the corner with his hands folded like he was bracing himself. The moment I saw him, something strange happened. He looked familiar, not in the obvious way, but in the way that makes your chest tighten for no reason, like a song you don't remember learning, but somehow know all the words to. "I'm not your father," he said before I could ask. That hurt more than I expected. "But I was his closest friend," he continued, "and I promised him something before he died." My heart pounded. "My father didn't die," I said. "At least, that's what I was told." The man exhaled slowly. "He disappeared," he said, "because staying would have gotten you killed." The world tilted. He told me everything then, about my real father's work, the kind that attracts dangerous people, about threats that started as warnings and turned into plans, about the night my father chose to vanish so I could live. "I was supposed to watch over you from a distance," the man said. "Your stepfather offered a solution. He said he'd raise you quietly, off the radar." "And the money?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "I paid him so he wouldn't fail you, so he'd have no reason to mistreat you." I laughed bitterly. "He did." "I know, and that's my fault." That's when I realized something. My stepfather wasn't my protector. He was my jailer. The money wasn't to care for me. It was hush money, insurance, a way to keep me contained, hidden, manageable. "Why now?" I asked. "Why tell me now?" "Because the payments stopped, and when your stepfather called asking for more, I knew he was getting desperate." A chill ran through me. Desperate people don't keep secrets, they sell them. I went home that night knowing 2 things. First, my life had been shaped by choices I never made. And second, my stepfather was about to lose control. And people like him don't go quietly. My stepfather confronts me after realizing I know the truth, and his next move puts my life in immediate danger. I didn't tell him what I knew. That was my mistake. I thought silence would protect me, that if I acted normal, he'd stay calm long enough for me to plan my exit. I packed a bag slowly, copied files, memorized numbers. I even practiced what I'd say to my mother, though no version of it felt right. But desperation sharpens instincts. He knew. The confrontation happened on a Sunday evening. My mother was at her sister's house. The TV was on, volume low, like background noise for something darker. He sat across from me, fingers laced, eyes locked on my face. "You've been making calls," he said. I didn't deny it. "You think you're clever," he continued, "digging into things that don't concern you." "They concern me," I replied. "They always did." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You don't understand how close you came to ruining everything." "Everything?" I stood up. "You mean your payments?" That did it. His hand slammed onto the table. "I kept you alive." "No," I said quietly. "You kept me quiet." For a moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he laughed, a hollow, brittle sound. "You were never supposed to find out," he said. "That's the problem with investments. They start asking questions." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You walk away now. You forget what you think you know, and I'll make sure you're taken care of." There it was again, that word, taken care of. I backed away. Or what? His smile vanished. Or I remind everyone why you were hidden in the first place. The threat hung in the air. He wasn't just afraid of losing money, he was afraid of losing leverage. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed dressed, phone charged, bag by the door. Every creak of the house sounded like a warning. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He contacted me. You need to leave, now. I didn't hesitate. I slipped out through the back door, heart pounding, and walked until my legs burned. A car pulled up at the corner, the man from the cafe. As we drove away, I looked back at the house. The windows were dark, quiet, too quiet. By morning, the truth had begun spreading. Authorities had been notified, not by me, but by the man who'd been paying. Records handed over, agreements exposed, the money trail laid bare. My stepfather tried to deny everything. But numbers don't lie, and neither do contracts. By the time my mother called me, crying, saying the police had questions, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because for the first time in my life, the power wasn't his anymore. And when power shifts, consequences follow. In part 6, my stepfather faces public exposure, and my mother is forced to choose between protecting him or finally choosing me. Part 6, the choice that broke us. The house I grew up in became a crime scene without ever being taped off. People came and went, lawyers, investigators, strangers with clipboards and calm voices. My stepfather's name started appearing in places it never had before, official places, unforgiving ones. And suddenly, the man who once controlled everything couldn't even control the narrative. My mother called me again 2 days later. Her voice sounded smaller, like it had shrunk under the weight of the truth. They say he did illegal things. They say it was about money, about you. I didn't answer right away. What did you know? I asked. Silence. That was her answer. I thought he was helping, she said finally. I thought he was giving you stability. By selling my life in pieces? I asked. She cried then, real sobs, not the quiet ones she used to hide behind. I was scared. I didn't want to be alone again. I closed my eyes, because in that moment I understood something painful and permanent. She hadn't chosen him over me. She'd chosen comfort over courage. The investigators wanted my statement. I gave it calmly, carefully, like someone describing a stranger's life. I handed over copies of emails, documents, timelines. Every word felt like closing a door I could never reopen. My stepfather was arrested quietly. No handcuffs on the news, no dramatic footage. Just a mugshot leaked online days later, his eyes empty, his jaw clenched. The money had stopped, the protection was gone, the illusion shattered. But the hardest part wasn't watching him fall, it was watching my mother stand at the edge of that fall and decide where to land. She visited me once before the hearing, sat across from me in a borrowed living room, hands twisting in her lap. He says he did it for us, that without him you wouldn't be alive. I leaned forward. Then why do I finally feel free now? She didn't answer. When the day came, she had a choice, to testify honestly or to defend the man who'd built his life on my silence. She chose truth, not loudly, not bravely, but she chose it. And that was enough. Because when the judge read the findings, fraud, coercion, unlawful guardianship, financial exploitation, the room went very still. My stepfather didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. The dollars that once gave him power now told his story for him. Every transfer, every agreement, every lie stacked neatly in columns. He was sentenced, not just to prison, but to irrelevance. And as they led him away, something inside me finally loosened. The grip he had on my life was gone. But my story wasn't over yet, because freedom brings its own questions, and the biggest one was still waiting. I confront the final truth about my real father and decide what family truly means after betrayal.
The house I grew up in became a crime scene without ever being taped off. People came and went, lawyers, investigators, strangers with clipboards and calm voices. My stepfather's name started appearing in places it never had before, official places, unforgiving ones. And suddenly, the man who once controlled everything couldn't even control the narrative. My mother called me again 2 days later. Her voice sounded smaller, like it had shrunk under the weight of the truth. "They say he did illegal things," she whispered. "They say it was about money, about you." I didn't answer right away. "What did you know?" I asked. Silence. That was her answer. "I thought he was helping," she said finally. "I thought he was giving you stability." "By selling my life in pieces?" I asked. She cried then, real sobs, not the quiet ones she used to hide behind. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't want to be alone again." I closed my eyes, because in that moment I understood something painful and permanent. She hadn't chosen him over me. She'd chosen comfort over courage. The investigators wanted my statement. I gave it calmly, carefully, like someone describing a stranger's life. I handed over copies of emails, documents, timelines. Every word felt like closing a door I could never reopen. My stepfather was arrested quietly. No handcuffs on the news, no dramatic footage, just a mugshot leaked online days later, his eyes empty, his jaw clenched. The money had stopped. The protection was gone. The illusion shattered. But the hardest part wasn't watching him fall. It was watching my mother stand at the edge of that fall and decide where to land. She visited me once before the hearing, sat across from me in a borrowed living room, hands twisting in her lap. "He says he did it for us, that without him you wouldn't be alive." I leaned forward. "Then why do I finally feel free now?" She didn't answer. When the day came, she had a choice: to testify honestly or to defend the man who'd built his life on my silence. She chose truth. Not loudly, not bravely, but she chose it. And that was enough. Because when the judge read the findings, fraud, coercion, unlawful guardianship, financial exploitation, the room went very still. My stepfather didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. The dollars that once gave him power now told his story for him. Every transfer, every agreement, every lie stacked neatly in columns. He was sentenced, not just to prison, but to irrelevance. And as they led him away, something inside me finally loosened. The grip he'd had on my life was gone. But my story wasn't over yet, because freedom brings its own questions, and the biggest one was still waiting. I confront the final truth about my real father and decide what family truly means after betrayal.
The courtroom emptied faster than I expected. People always think justice is loud, that it comes with shouting or tears or dramatic music. But when it was over, it felt quiet, almost unfinished, like a door closing softly instead of slamming shut. I walked outside alone. For the first time in my life, no one was watching me like I owed them something. The man who had been paying to protect me met me on the steps. He didn't speak right away. He just handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter written in handwriting I didn't recognize, but somehow felt. "My father?" I asked. He nodded. "Written before he disappeared, in case you ever found the truth." I read it slowly. He wrote about fear, not for himself, but for me, about how leaving was the hardest thing he'd ever done, about how he chose my safety over his presence, hoping one day I'd understand. "If you're reading this," the letter said, "then you're free, and that's all I ever wanted for you." My chest ached. I didn't hate my real father anymore. I didn't even blame him. He had loved me the only way he could, from a distance, with sacrifice. As for my mother, we spoke weeks later, not to heal everything, just to stop the bleeding. She apologized, not for marrying my stepfather, but for staying silent, for teaching me that love meant endurance. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "That's good, because forgiveness isn't something I owe anymore." I moved away after that. Not far, but far enough to breathe. I went to college on my own terms. I paid my own way. Every bill felt like proof that my life finally belonged to me. Sometimes people ask if I regret exposing him. I don't, because the truth didn't destroy my family. It revealed it. My stepfather lost everything the moment his dollars stopped speaking for him. All he had left was the truth, and it had no loyalty to him. As for me, I stopped defining family by blood or paperwork or money. Family is who protects you without expecting payment. Family is who chooses you when it's inconvenient. Family is who doesn't treat your life like a transaction. I wasn't his blood. He was right about that. But I was never his investment either. I was a human being, and no amount of dollars could ever own that. If you've ever been made to feel like you were worth less than someone else's comfort, remember this: the truth may take time, but when it comes, it always sets someone free.